Greetings adventurers and welcome back to Adventure Game Show Geek. Now, the first time I came across the Jungle Run ripoff, the 2020 CITV game show, known as Don't Unleash the Beast, I marked it down as an example of a game show gone wrong. Now, that was just my knee-jerk reaction, mind you, as I did find some glimmers of brilliance in it after thinking it over. The grey morality of the professor, and lots of beautiful design work. But most of it was buried under a list of issues a mile long. Did that stop me watching the rest of the series? No, but that's a whole different kettle of fish. Now, recently they released Series 2, and I couldn't help but watch it, just to see if anything had changed. And I have one thing to say. Wow. Obviously, I don't just have one thing to say, I have lots to say. Why do you think this video exists? But my point is, it improved drastically. I swear they must have been rifling through my brain space because it mended so many of the little things that annoyed me. Before we begin, at this point I would normally make a semi-snide comment about being in the target audience and therefore claiming authority on what works and what doesn't. Sadly, I can't do this here as it is aimed at 10 to 12-year-olds and I haven't been either in a very long time, but is that going to stop me? Absolutely not. The first immediate improvement I noticed was with the physical challenge. Originally, the physical challenges were, to put it simply, clunky. They were awkward and had a rather severe case of untouchable green paint of doom. I know this was mainly because of COVID restrictions, but it just wasn't good television. In the new series, however, everything is working a lot better. They've made the wise investment of a ball pit and a dry ice machine, the latter of which was sorely needed, and its presence in the series is a major improvement in itself. The social distancing seems to be a bit less obvious, which is good, and the challenge quality itself seems to be so much better. However, despite the lingering threat of, I don't know, being eaten, it still feels very low risk. Now, this could just be down to me being spoiled with challenges like this. Or this. Or this. Still, it's a massive improvement and I actually found the challenges really enjoyable. And the confessionals after the challenges are so much better. They feel a lot more natural and require a lot less suspension of disbelief, and I like them very much. Not to mention we get to see more of those beautiful in-between sets, which are by far my favourite part of the show. The mental challenges, which were universally dubbed The Great Escape, are interesting. They remind me of a Final Week challenge from a Raven spin-off, complete with the vague instructions. Whether they have the intellect to find and use those instructions, well, that's a whole other story. But still, I enjoy it, and The Great Escape is by far my favourite of all the challenges they have to face. Also, I love the Hallian Elf. It's just so pretty, and it would have been so easy for them to use knockoff Norse rooms like everyone else who wants a mystical decryption task, naming no names, Raven. Instead, they got creative and it was so worth it. The letters are really pretty, but do you know what's not pretty? The combination look. It's just so jarring among the beautiful set pieces. And they've also improved the graphics, which isn't something I thought it needed improving, but they've improved them and they look great. But the music does need to step up a little. The show isn't very suspenseful, and the music isn't quite doing the job of building up the tension needed. And now, for the moment I'm sure you've all been waiting for. Simian Fruit. If you're familiar with the channel, you should know that I have previously named them the worst game show MacGuffin of all time. Yeah. So, if there's one thing the second series could do to get me on its good side, it would be to ditch them. Or at least rename them. And don't get me started on the name Simian. So when the first 5 minutes of the show had passed and there was no mention of Simian Fruit, I was ecstatic. The the Sacred Stones had the potential to be a much better scoring mechanism, even if I wasn't sure how they worked yet. And then the physical challenge ended, and our attention was drawn to 3 massive simian fruit. And I think that was a bad call. The only good thing about the simian fruit was the fact that they were pretty, and supersizing them makes them ugly. But these are interesting. For every challenge failed, one of them has to be left behind to distract the beasts so they can escape. It's a scoring mechanism based on not gaining items, but trying not to lose items. And I think it's my favourite use of the simian fruit. I just don't like how they look. Why couldn't they have kept them small, that changed the colour maybe, make them redder or bluer, or make them yellow? Yellow is a nice colour. And they've changed the purpose of the simian fruit as well. In Series 1, the fruits were for drugging the beast, but now they're just distractions because the beast loved them so much. I'm not sure why they changed it, but they did, and I don't think it adds or takes anything away from the fruit. But personally, I like it because it means the name bothers me less. But the name should not bother anyone who's actually sane, so again, I'm not sure why they changed it. And then, the simian tree. It's the most beautiful set piece by far, but it's the worst challenge. Dry ice has improved it a little bit by consuming the bounce pad, but it still feels ridiculously easy. Also, it's a single player challenge, and this is not the right kind of show for a single player challenge. If they could find a way to both make it harder and make it multiplayer, then I would be a lot happier with it. However, they have started telling us how much time they have in the chamber, roughly. It's an improvement. It's still a little too vague for my liking, but it's an improvement. There's the beast feeder, which works so much better than just throwing the fruit at the beast. Also, it makes a pretty good visual timekeeper. Now, what about the Sacred Stones? Well, they are interesting. It took me to the second episode to work out the actual use, but essentially, if you fail to collect all 3 Sacred Stones, then you have to piece together the ones you're missing using some fragments. However long that takes is taken off your time treasure chamber. How do I feel about that? I'm not entirely sure. At the moment, I want to like it, which is a good thing, but I can't figure out why I like it. It could be just the fact that it's a scoring factor that isn't the simian fruit. I mean, it doesn't really add anything significant, and 3 individual scoring mechanisms is a little too much for one game show. But also, it's a really cool rock. I'm undecided. And finally, the treasure chamber. Back in Series 1, this part was a major letdown. It was supposed to be the climax of the show, but it just failed so badly. It was too big, too empty, too much green paint of doom, and the scrambled necks were pointless, and there was barely any actual treasure. It was ugly, plain and simple. And as I was watching Series 2, I knew that it would make or break it for me. And you know what? It made it. It really made it. First things, they enter at the same time, which was much better than the weird one-at-a-time COVID restriction thing they did in the first series. Secondly, they ditched the ugly scramble neck. And thirdly, it's had a glow up and no green paint, just piles of golden jewels. It feels like a real treasure chamber now, and definitely carries its weight with the likes of the Fort Boyard treasure chamber and the Temple of the Jungle King. I like it a lot. We still have the slippery slope, which I'm not fond of, but to be honest, the final challenge would be dead easy if it didn't exist. So I'm just gonna let it slide. Get it? Let it slide. Slippery slope. Hey. Anyway, finally, the artifacts. I'm not sure how they can tell which are artifacts and what is miscellaneous treasure. I have a sneaking suspicion they've been briefed beforehand, but maybe you can just tell because all of the artifacts are absolutely things that should not be found in a treasure chamber. I still haven't got over the tree bark in Series 1, and trust me when I say it hasn't improved on that front at all. But overall, the whole series has improved majorly. Is it as good as Jungle Run? No, but it's nearly there. If you're interested and want to watch it yourself, definitely start with Series 2, and then only venture into Series 1 after you're totally sure that you like it. Thank you for joining me today, and remember, it's only a game, isn't it? Oh my god, someone's unleashed the beast!